Welcome to Ecclesia Principles, a biblical strategy for believers to engage in God's design for government with Ray Eppard.
Hello, glad you could join us again today. And this week, we're discussing what is happening in our culture regarding children. One of the ecclesia principles is jurisdictional government. And with one of the jurisdictions that God established is the family. Matter of fact, Ephesians chapter 6, verses 1 through 4 says, "Children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. Honor your father and mother, which is the first commandment with promise, that it may be well with you, that you may live long on the earth." That establishes that children are under the authority of their parents. And then verse 4, "And you fathers, do not provoke your children to wrath, but bring them up in the training and admonition of the Lord." This shows us that the children are under the parents and the parents are under God. And God will judge parents for how they function. Now, with this, a lot of what is being fed to us about why the government needs to intervene in family situations. And there is some truth to this. The thing is how do you fix it? And one of the phrases I used yesterday is that you don't fix something that's broke by breaking something else. Two wrongs don't make a right from that standpoint. So in this, what we have to really do is reestablish the things that God set in order and bring them back into proper alignment. See, what is happening, and it is it is a reality. You go into some of the big box stores and you watch some of the people with their children, with their families, and you're just like, what kind of world did I just step into? I mean, you can go on social media and there'll be things about, look at the people that go into this particular store or whatever. And they'll show just all kinds of weird things. There's a lot of weird stuff happening out there. It's really strange how some people raise their children. And it's terrible how some people treat their children. There's just a lot of things going on there. But here's part of the problem. If you would, there's a phrase that if you're going to make an omelet, you've got to break some eggs. And that phrase has been used in regarding improving our culture. And if you would, going back to the social engineering that really began in full force in the 60s, what you have is a breaking down of so many systems. Now, let me use a phrase that you heard in the last presidential election. It was actually the campaign slogan of our current president, and that was "Build Back Better." You see, the bottom line is basically from the 60s up until roughly right now, the social engineering has been tearing down. It has been breaking down our society intentionally and by design. Breaking down and causing failures of systems. Because if you're going to replace one structure on property, you have to tear that down first before you can build a new one. Now, the thing of it is, those in the progressive and liberal arenas, they think they're building back better. That what they have wanted to do is get rid of everything that pertains to God. Eliminate God from every aspect of life. Eliminate the jurisdictions that God has established. Eliminate the things that God put in place, and we'll put ourselves in place here. Romans chapter 1 talks about those who profess themselves to be wise, but they are fools. And it says that they worship the creature more than the creator. you see at that point, humanity, particularly in the liberal arenas, the progressive arenas, they are the elite. They are the best. And that's in their thinking. And in all honesty, it is really no different. And this is a strong statement, but I'm making it intentionally. Their ideology is no different than Hitler and his Aryan nation. Hitler was wrong. So are they. Hitler with his Aryan nation was basically that based on your genetics, one person was better than the other. In this situation, what we're dealing with now is how one person thinks causes them to be more valuable, and somebody that thinks wrong or thinks contrary to that has no value, and therefore they need to be removed from society. Their thoughts need to be removed from society. Their voice needs to be removed from society. And that's how they're, quote, building back better. Now, with this, in the tearing down of our culture, in tearing down of our society, one of the things that had to happen for that to take place is the family had to break down. The family had to get to the place that it was not functioning properly, that parents were not raising their children to abide by the social mores of the culture, that the values, the things that God established as just and right for human interaction, those things had to stop being passed on. And when you look at our country since the 60s, I mean, it started a little bit before that, but it took real hold in the 60s, that at that point, those things began to be pushed away. They began to be challenged. They particularly began to be challenged at the university levels. That's where these things begin, because they're looking to push down the ideas to the lowest level. But they start here. They start with the ones that can be influencers in the culture, the ones that can have a voice, that will train the next generation. That's why so much of that has happened through the universities, and that's why the universities are so liberal. That was an attack. It was by design in that situation. Now, with that, what has happened because of no discipline, Dr. Spock, and basically not actually having corporal punishment of any type, those types of things, and how that has created an entirely new culture in our world. And now, rather than the parents being an authority over the children, it's almost like the children are the authority over the parents until it comes to government. And then government is over the children. But with that, the whole thing, even with the gender identity and all that's happening in the public school system with that, again, it is the child is more important than the parent. The parent doesn't have authority. The child is a person. If they're 3-year-old, saying that a 12-year-old can make a decision about their gender and have surgery, begin hormone therapies, and that the parent is being abusive if they don't support it. Those thoughts and agendas are out there. And with that being the case, again, that is designed to undermine the jurisdiction of the family and the proper structure that God gave to it, that the parents are responsible for the children. Now, with this, they're not stupid. They are pushing more and more, and I was actually talking to somebody not too long ago, that there are places in our country that school lasts year-round. It's a 12-month system. And with that, largely part of how that is sold is that you as a parent, because unfortunately, a lot of parents look at school as a free babysitter. in all honesty. That is what it's looked at by a lot of people. Get them into school as quick as possible, and they're fine with the school keeping them all the time, because then I'm not having to pay babysitting, I'm not having to do this, and I understand those dynamics. We raised 2 children, and I understand that reality. But the bottom line is, it's really being sold so that the system can actually begin to be the parent of the child, and that we will take this burden off of you. We will teach them the values that they need. They won't just get education. They won't just get reading, writing, and arithmetic. They will get the proper values. The only thing is, the values that they're being given are not the values of most of the parents in many places. It is a usurpation of the rights of parents. It is basically getting the school boards to secede their authority to the government, so that the government comes in control of all of it. So if you would, the failure of parenting in our current culture was created by design, so that it would be, one, a selling point for why the government needs to do it. Well, so many parents aren't doing what they need to do. And then, once that, government needs to do this, then the government goes and teaches things contrary to what the parents were wanting by the majority, in a sense. And so at that point, it undermines that, and through that, then the government is placed in the parental role, and so succeeding generations keep getting worse at parenting, because they have to tear down the system so that they can build back better. And see, here's where we are now. It was not by accident that was the campaign slogan 4 years ago, well, right now 3 years ago, build back better. They are at the place in their scheme that it's time to put in the better. It's time to put in the new values. It's time to put in the things that we really want. That's why you have seen an acceleration in pushing values that 4 years ago you'd have never dreamed we would be where we are today. Why? Because they have moved away from just tearing down to now they're building back better. They're putting their new system in place. They're putting their new values in place. And it is creating chaos. Parents are like, what in the world is going on? I don't know how many people I've said, who would have ever thought that this was a good idea? I would have never dreamed a couple years ago. That's because they're in the phase of building back better. And you see, the bottom line is that we who have biblical values, who value the family, who value a biblical worldview and biblical culture, we have to step up. We have to become engaged. You need to be running for office. You need to be running for school board. You need to be running for elected office in various places, because we have left the running of government to people mostly who do not have biblical values. You've got to get involved. God bless you. See you tomorrow.